are listening to Naked Soul Reflections, Mindful Moments for Clothes-Free Living, with your host, Hantu Nehart.
Greetings, everyone. Honto Nehart here. Welcome to another episode of Naked Soul Reflection. Recently, I've been reading at various intervals this book called Health, Healing, and Beyond. And one part of this book that has stayed with me, as well as repeating itself in my environment, is the author, TKV Desikachar, speaking of his father, Krishnamacharya, about Krishnamacharya's perspective that, and the concept in yoga generally, that vinyasa is everywhere. So there's a start, a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything. And this wasn't just about the physical practice of yoga, although the principle applies there as well. How you enter a pose, how you sit with the pose, sit in the pose, and then how you leave the pose. All of those pieces are equally important and equally critical, because all of those components together are vinyasa or flow. This is something that some of my teachers reference regularly. And it's also something that I'm really taking to heart as I walk through various types of experiences in my life. How do I enter a conversation? Perhaps it's a challenging conversation. I've had a couple of those recently. The conversation isn't just about like one topic. It's not just about like some point that I think that I want to make. There's actually a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. How do I engage with that person from the start? And each moment connected one to the next. How do I step through each of those moments? And how do I leave the conversation? Do I make a graceful exit? Or do I leave it abruptly? And I love how beautifully this concept translates, not just in physical practice, how it translates in physical practice as well as with everything else. I don't just jump into a supported headstand. There's a very graceful way to enter a supported headstand. And then how I abide in the pose. And then how I leave it. I don't just collapse to the floor. There's a graceful way of taking my time to exit. And all of that is vinyasa. All of that is flow. Do I just run up to someone and dump things on them and then leave the scene, or do I, because I've done plenty of that. Let's face it, I've done plenty of dump and go. And now I'm interested in flow. How I touch base with someone, how I sit with them in a conversation or in a moment, and then how I exit it. do I leave the house standing, or do I burn it to the ground like I've done things before? I think about this a lot at work. A lot at work, actually. Whatever the transactions, the conversations, the trainings, how I'm dealing with people. Am I just running and dumping and getting the heck out of Dodge? Or am I actually creating a flow of activity? It's such a beautiful way to think about life, to approach it in so many different aspects. And I'm finding that when I don't just, for instance, in my physical yoga practice, when I don't just jump into a pose and then jump out of it, I'm actually avoiding injury. Taking my time to set it up, abiding in it responsibly, and then leaving the pose helps me build strength, helps me observe various intricate moments in it, and it helps me to leave it and do all of that without injury. And taking that into life, am I engaging with people in a way that is causing injury like I have in the past? Or am I taking time to set up the conversation or the interaction, to abide in the interaction and then leave it in a way that will cause the least amount of injury, if possible, no injury at all, even if it's not necessarily a comfortable conversation? Can I leave things intact? This is all vinyasa. Yoga is not just about these physical practices, although the physical practice can be very powerful. For me, it is very powerful. It's how I worship, and it's how I experience the world. It's how I channel. It's how I assimilate information. But all of life is very visceral for me, and learning is the same way. I have to do and touch and smell things in order for me to learn it. And yoga encompasses everything. It's not just showing up at the studio, being on my mat for 60 minutes, and then cutting and running. Yoga is everywhere. It's all the different elements of life. And I can't pick and choose where I want to do it, because all of it is the yoga. All of it is the meditation. All of it is a moving meditation, a moving art. And when I think about it that way, it changes how I engage with people, whether or not I respond to something, how I respond to something. Doesn't necessarily mean I always make the best choices in life, but how I go about it is so much different. It's so much more intentional. I mean, I had an opportunity recently to actually burn a bridge because I thought I was being wronged by someone. But before I talked with her, I really wanted to, think about, do I actually want to burn a bridge with this person, or do I actually want to maintain a relationship with her? I really didn't want to burn the bridge. And these are all things we have to think about, whether various interactions or relationships are still fruitful. And I thought, this one, I think it is. I think so. And so the way that I went about that conversation, I was very intentional moment to moment about being in flow with her. And it was something that had the potential to blow up, to really get crazy. And it was one of the hardest things I've had to do to actually really work that conversation in a peaceable way, to flow from start to finish. and to leave that house standing. There's so much value in that. Even when we're cooking, when we're gardening, when we're exercising, when we're in a conversation with someone, when we're driving. Very much when we're driving, commuting at all in any way. There's a lot of value in thinking about these things as flow and thinking about entering them and exiting them gracefully, as well as abiding in the moments intentionally. So I offer that to you this week because it's something that I'm very, very much working on right now. Many things on my mind, many things on my heart. It's not been an easy season lately, but I'm very interested in engaging things with this concept of all of life is vinyasa, all of life is flow. And again, it doesn't mean that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we always do the best thing or that we, say the best things. But it does mean that there's just more intention. And we take our time and we observe and we breathe. I mean, thinking about just breathing through a conversation, that alone creates so much more flow. I've had some very, very challenging conversations in the last 1, 2, 3, however many years of my life. And I'll tell you guys, we'll say this in classes, right? Teachers say this, that there's no yoga without breath. Never mind the complicated poses and the fancy clothes, or if we're clothes free, the skin and the naked body and the curves. Never mind all that. If there's no breath, there's no yoga. And thinking about breath and actually breathing through a conversation has really, that'll save a lot right there. That'll definitely help keep a house from burning down. That'll definitely help with nonviolence. So this week, can you see a particular aspect of your life as flow? Perhaps it's something that might not feel very comfortable, or might be a place of strain or stress. Can you look at it as an opportunity to practice flow, to practice vinyasa, mindfully going from moment to moment and mindfully breathing from moment to moment? Can you build that grace and that strength through these moments by taking your time, whether it's eating a meal mindfully, having a conversation with someone, gardening, taking your time commuting? Can you see it all as flow and treat it with the utmost intention and respect and honor and gratitude? Believe me, I'm certainly with you all on this path. This is something that it is like front and center in my life right now. And it's the reason that I want to share it with you for this week. So let's do that. Let's breathe through something this week and let's see what all we can leave standing, yeah? What can we build? What can we leave standing rather than burning the whole darn thing down? I send you all my love, and namaste, friends.